People want stronger relationships, they want stronger communities, and they want their kids to succeed in sports. This podcast is a place for honest conversations, real stories, and practical guidance, all centered on helping kids grow through sports. If you're looking for stronger relationships, stronger community, and athletes who grow not just in skill, but in character, you're in the right place.
Let me ask you something. Why are so many kids showing up to high school sports not fully prepared? Because today we're diving into the connection between youth sports and what actually happens at the high school level. In this episode, you're going to learn what high school programs are really seeing from incoming athletes, where the biggest gaps in development are happening, and how youth sports can better prepare kids for the next level. And most importantly, why this isn't about winning early, but developing athletes the right way over time. Today, we're joined by Jared Chizek from the Iowa High School Athletic Association, who works directly with schools and communities across the state of Iowa and has a front row seat at how the game is evolving. Let's get into it.
Welcome, everyone, to From the Sidelines Youth Sports Foundation podcast. I'm Jim Miller, president of the Youth Sports Foundation. As always, I'm joined by my communications director and our podcast producer, Aaron Meyer. Welcome, Aaron. Today, Aaron, we have got a guest, and I'm super excited about. We'll be joined by Jared Chizek, an assistant director for the Iowa High School Athletic Association. The IHSAA oversees all the boys' high school sports in the state, including football. And Jared, his job is football in the state of Iowa. Plays a major role in shaping and structuring and the safety standards of all the boys' sports that happen in the state. So that's going to be really exciting. Jared works closely with all the schools, coaches, parents. He communicates across the state with all the communities. And so he has a unique perspective on participation trends, athletes, development, and what Friday nights really look like in high school sports to our towns. We're excited to talk with him today about the connection between youth sports and high school sports and where the future of the football is going in the state of Iowa. So let's wait no longer. Let's bring on Jared Chizek.
CBMS is proud to be a continuing sponsor of YSF. For more than 45 years, we've helped both consumers and their lenders navigate the loan closing process. Our focus on trust and long-term relationships aligns perfectly with everything YSF stands for. And we are honored to support this podcast and YSF's mission for all of our kids.
Well. I'm gonna have this guy introduce himself. Welcome to the podcast, Jared. You want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Not a problem, Jim. I'm Jared Chizek. I'm currently an assistant director here with the Iowa High School Athletic Association. With my roles with the Athletic Association, I currently oversee the sports of football and track and field. I've had my hand in swimming, baseball, and cross country in the past, but with some restructuring, reshuffling here in the office, I'm just down to those two major sports right now. And I know a common question is what does that actually mean when you oversee the sports? From that standpoint, like I said, we're responsible for organizing the postseason tournaments. For football, we're one of the few states where the state association actually schedules everyone's contests throughout the regular season. During that redistricting cycle, which fortunately here in 2026, we are not in the middle. We're in the middle of a cycle, so we're not redistricting. So I've got a little more time on my hands right now.
Nice.
But I'm a very popular person in terms of with coaches and ADs when it comes to setting districts and the non-conference, non-district slate for schools across our great state.
Thank you. Yeah, you are. You're a popular guy. You're always popular with me, Jared. I appreciate you coming on. So
We'll
Jared,
see how popular he is with me.
yeah, we'll see.
Jury's still out. No, just kidding.
Yeah. So for the families listening, and we're gonna grill you on some questions. Okay, you ready? Are you ready to be in the hot seat? Okay.
I did
This is
not sign
good
up to be
cop,
on the
bad
hot
cop.
seat.
I'll be the good cop. Jim will be the bad cop.
He knows I'm the bad cop. We've known each other quite a while.
Just remember, Jim, you're on the short list if we need to come back to the Unidome next year for state football or not.
Oh, okay. Well, be nice.
Will be nice. Yeah, I look forward to that every year. For the families listening, what is the mission for Iowa today beyond just wins and championships? I mean, you're in charge of football. Beyond them just getting to the championship and wins, there's more to you, what you do for the the high schools when it comes to youth high school football? What is that?
Like I said, football is the ultimate team sport. I mean, there is no one-on-one. While it does help that if you have one outstanding athlete, and I do give my brother some crap about that because my brother was fortunate to coach Cooper Eugene in high school.
Yeah, I
It
know. I
made
was
it,
there.
it made him a heck of a lot better coach for those 3 years when he was playing varsity football for him. But from that standpoint, it's still the ultimate team game. It's whether you need 11 or 8 going forward, trying to run that play to execution. And that's the most important thing with it. I mean, you're out for the sports, regardless of what sport it is. If it's football, if it's basketball, like I said, we've got state basketball next week. From the standpoint of you're out there to have fun with your friends. I mean, a common theme that we hear from football coaches across the state, those who are successful, and those some are that are brand new trying to build a program, is the common phrase is football is hard.
Mm.
Mhm.
And people forget that. But it can mean a whole lot of different things. We can look at different obstacles that may need to be overcome depending on what program you're at. But you're still out for. There's a reason that these kids are out for. Again, doesn't matter the sport. They have to enjoy it at some point. It's
Right.
not a job. It's meant to enjoy. It's high school football. It's not a from 3:30 to 6 o'clock or 6:30 on a Monday through Thursday for practice, for a few hours on a Friday night. You're out there with your friends, you're out there with your classmates, you're out there trying to achieve a common goal of trying to win a football game. Again, as we also say in our office, 50% of the teams across the state each Friday night don't win. At the end of the
That's
season, at the end of the season, only 7 programs are ultimately state champions. So what is the
yep.
definition of success for some of our programs? Again, everyone's in a little different spot where that might be, but the point of uh, I think we lose sight on why kids play sports. And yes, people want to win. Naive to that, but there's some underlying joy of why kids do what they want to do to be out there.
So beyond just helping you, I mean, you work with coaches, ADs we're talking football, ADs, coaches, officials. I mean, your plate is overflowing with people that you have to deal with just to get a Friday night. I don't think people realize for a Friday night game to happen and what the Iowa High School Athletic Association and Jared himself has to do before that first August Friday night, what has to happen. Coaches have to have all their certifications in. Officials have to be scheduled. I mean, you're working with ADs. There's a lot involved besides going out and playing the games. Before that, when that happens, that's like, hey, this is the easy part.
So that's you said it, Jim. Like I said again, while in Iowa, like I said, Nebraska and South Dakota are 2 other states that actually assign every other regular season game for their schools like we do. So we're in the minority when it comes to that. Fortunately, though, we're not like the state of Arizona, where all their officials' assignments for the regular season come through our office. So
Oh
that can
boy.
either be done locally with the athletic directors or with their assigners at a conference or a district they hire. So I get at least pass the buck on that one during the regular season. Again, we try to educate our officials as much as possible. We've added, like I said, we just completed year 3 with some weekly training tapes that we still have posted on our website on trying to get our officials to be more consistent across the state. So again, if you're Northwest Iowa, it matches the calls in Southeast Iowa to become more consistent, but also as a teaching tool for our officials, but also for our coaches on when we talk about consistencies, what are thresholds to penalties, how do we keep our players safe with that. But when we get to the postseason, then like I said, the officials assignment comes back to our office. So when we went down to crunch time, win or lose, if a call is made in the playoffs and someone's unhappy, I'm the one that has to answer for it because I'm ultimately the one that assigned it. But again, like I said, jokingly in the office during those 13-week period of games, from a work standpoint, Monday through Wednesday afternoon is completely nuts. It's cleaning up the previous week, whether that be
Right.
concerns with a
Yeah.
call, communicating with schools on here are rules reminders. So like I said, when we get to Thursday, I kind of have my schedule laid out that on Thursday, our schools, our ADs, our head coaches, they get some correspondence from me on some, here's what we saw last week, how can we clean it up? A few reminders. Our officials get their training tape Thursday, which I really enjoy Friday then because joking aside, it's people are, schools are nervous, not nervous, but ready to play that game. So their questions for the week are over. The prep's done.
Yeah.
They've practiced.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
that standpoint, I can actually catch my breath Friday morning before I head out Friday night to evaluate a crew working across the state.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot going on.
That's extensive.
What trends have you seen in Iowa high school football over the last decade, whether it's participation, style of play, or preparation on the athletes? What trends are you starting to see when it comes to Iowa high school football?
So we've seen a growth of 8-player football across the state with some of our smaller schools. Uh, like I said, 8-player football first came into our state in the late 90s, is an opportunity to give some of our smaller schools an opportunity to have their own football program. Like I said, we're hovering right now around the just north of 66 schools. I think this year is what we finished up with. That's our largest classification right now of our 7 with that. But again, in Iowa, you can have your own program, or you can share. You can have a cooperative sharing agreement with another district if you'd like to. If you don't have enough interest within your own school. So we've seen a growth of 8-player. We have seen a decrease right now. It seems to be across the board in most of our sports slightly. I don't want to speak on what's going on. I said a lot of the attention in our state right now is with girls basketball on some of those struggling numbers across the state. But what we're seeing is teams are still able to field a varsity team, but maybe they've only been able to have one other sub-varsity level. Or, some of our larger schools in the past have had 3 or 4 levels of football, and maybe they're down to 2.5. And so that's been a lot of our focus here the last couple of years with our advisory committee made up of coaches across the state on how do we make up for those schools that if they lose a sub-varsity opponent, because again, as we've said earlier, football is hard. People don't want to just go to football practice. They want an opportunity to play in those games. So how do we fulfill those opportunities to allow those kids a chance to find a replacement game throughout the season without completely messing up the playoffs at the varsity level? Or the sub-varsity level, how can we just get kids reps so they're ready for that next step when they have to get promoted to Friday night? Like I said, style of football, again, game is much more wide open than it used to be, which is funny to say, but the teams that still have a lot of success still are going to line it up and still run the football down someone's throat.
Yep.
Go to a little spread with it. Still helps get a few kids out of the box.
Yep.
But it is completely, much more wide open. Again, we joked this year at our football playoffs. We had one of our Hall of Fame members, Tyler Jones from Cherokee. First, he was the first exclusive. Like I said, he was actually coached, Jim, you're from Muscatine, with Tony Naparella, his offense back in the early 2000s of being completely wide open with it. Tyler was the first to be over all these yards. He's had all these passing records. But now if you look past that point, anything prior to 2000, there's only 3 or 4 seasons that would even be in the top 50 across the state right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, we're seeing a lot more wide openness with that. But again, when we get to the dome for the semis and the finals, you better be able to run the football to have any success.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Good stuff. Aaron, we got a couple questions. I'm going to let you chime in here.
Well, thank you, Jim. So, Jared, we represent the Youth Sports Foundation, and I love how you talked about that foundation and being able to have communities, smaller communities playing too, which I think is definitely something that we align with as the Youth Sports Foundation. What would happen if we didn't have those youth sports programs? Can you speak to the importance of that when it comes to high school?
Like I said, key with anything youth-wise, regardless of how structured it is or how unorganized, even if it's pickup, it's just to give the opportunity to kids to experience a sport. As we've seen, like I said, when I was a kid, we didn't have youth tackle football. Good, bad, or different. I know there's mixed bags out there on the feelings with youth tackle. But we were in a flag football league in Fort Dodge, and we thought it was the coolest thing ever because it was the first time to be part of a football team from that. But again, it gave a whole bunch of kids, at least I'm speaking from my own personal experience, the opportunity to at least dabble in that sport with it. I mean, and again, it doesn't matter what the sport is. We focus a lot here on football based on what my current responsibilities are with that. But again, while we don't want to weed kids out, it's still the opportunity though of how do we develop some small skills to be taken forward, whether that be actual techniques being taught on a youth field, or just again the experience of putting on a helmet and pads for the first time, of making sure how this is actually going to feel when I get to that next level of having some of that experience of actually knowing what a contact feels like. I mean, it is completely different blocking somebody in full gear than it is working through a dummy and a hand shield. So it's that first time of getting knocked back of, holy cow, it's kind of for real now. How do we do this? And that's the beauty right now with some of our youth sports across the state. On again, if they're running it through YSF or another program, which again, there's multiple different levels out there, rec leagues. But from that standpoint of just giving the experience for a handful of kids across the state to experience that before they get thrown into organized school sports.
Jared, you spoke to this a little bit with skill development, but when it comes to structured programs, what differences do you see in communities that have those versus those that don't, whether it's, like I said, skill development or culture or retention?
I would say, as we've seen a growing trend, and this is working again with the Iowa Football Coaches Association, hearing some of their their experiences with their youth programs or their junior high programs, but it's those high school coaches taking an interest in the youth program, understanding that we need to keep those numbers out, whatever that looks like. If that's working with the youth coaches on this is what we'd like you to run for an offense, because this is or a defense, because this is what some of our base concepts that we'd want run at the high school level. Again, we're not expecting anybody to be Arch Manning at the get the 6th grade level, but from that standpoint of if we're going to run heavy, okay, we need to focus on blocking developments. We need to worry about worried about actually how to take a handoff. How do we hand that ball off? If we want to run, if we want to throw the football, how do we have our receivers run proper routes? But it's also one of those, again, with our high school coaches and working hand in hand with those youth coaches. Again, now it takes a whole different look across our state. How involved are they? Is it going to be, again, our high school coaches have families at home.
Yeah.
I mean, from that standpoint, there's only so many hours in the day while they're trying to manage their 9 through 12 program. We've got some of our 8-player programs that are 7-12 programs, just in terms of trying to be the most efficient with the resources they have with their coaching staff.
Sure.
So how do you have sell that message from your varsity level down on how do we try to get in the same page of, again, we want to keep as many kids out as possible, which means we want to have as good of an experience as possible. So how do we continue to have the same great teaching ability, techniques to keep kids safe, but also from the standpoint to show that I care what you're doing down here as we work our way down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, God willing, this won't happen. But what would happen in Iowa and the Midwest? What do Friday nights look like 5-10 years from now if we're not seeing that participation at the community level with youth?
So that's a nightmare scenario, because I still think, like I said, I'm biased given my background, but I still think Friday nights in the fall are the greatest thing we have in this state.
100%.
It is a community. It's a community event, because it's just not the players on the field or the coaches on the sidelines. It's the marching band. It's the cheerleaders. It's the booster club in the concession stand, or what other fundraiser might be going on. It is truly a community event because they're so limited in number. Depending on what classification you're in our state, it's 8 or 9 opportunities in the fall that you get to play that you're guaranteed to play a football game.
Yeah.
And that is still a community gathering. It's homecomings, a whole slew of other things. I mean, and it's not a knock to our other sports, but when you play 21 basketball games in Iowa, well, there's at least 2 or 3 games a week. In baseball, we're playing up to 40 games.
Right.
There's a lot more variety of, I miss one. No, in football, they're so limited, and it's that line that can keep those communities together as well too, because it brings so many different kids and different backgrounds together. Well, again, whether it's athletes, cheerleaders, band members, other clubs that might be assisting in some other way. We have student ambassadors that take care of officials in some of our schools. But again, the number of kids that get involved with it, that's what makes us nervous when we talk about dwindling programs or losing programs. That's one opportunity where our schools and communities don't have that opportunity to showcase that to others across the state.
Absolutely. We had a guest on, Lindsay Phillips, who does Big Brother, Big Sister in Muscatine, and she's just really involved with athletics with her kids. And she was also mentioning that, just to connect that for our listeners, is like, the research shows you really want to have kids involved, because involved kids, they're just more successful. They're so much more well-rounded, and that's really what we want. So, even if football is hard, right, it definitely gets them those skills, which I love. So,
well, it's like when you get youth kids that wear sorry to interrupt, their jerseys on a Friday to school, the youth, because guess what? That's what their older kids are doing at the high school level. They get one day a week. It's like, it's game day. It's Friday. We're wearing our jerseys.
Yeah.
And it brings that connection from the youth to the high school. We're getting them ready for that. So
no one's wearing a wrestling singlet to school today on Friday.
That is true. Or no one's wearing their swim trunks to school on a Friday, right? During swimming.
Hopefully not.
I mean, leave it to Jared.
Great perspective. I love that. So to get more into the technical side, Jared, what fundamentals do you, or habits even, do you wish that athletes would come in with at the 9th grade level?
I think the biggest thing is we talk about player safety. So how do we teach safety? It's from the standpoint of how do we keep the head out of football?
Yeah.
Not only just tackling from a standpoint, but also a blocking standpoint. Again, because we have kids out there, it doesn't matter. And again, one bad apple ruins it for everybody in that sense. From your head is not a weapon. Your helmet is not a weapon. It's meant to protect you out there in the field. So it's the importance of, again, how do we actually tackle with our arms? How do we wrap? Again, a growing trend, Jim, going back to it too, is we've got a number of high school programs now no longer wearing full pads during practice. I mean, they're in
Right.
shells
Yeah.
because there's no reason. We don't need to be taking kids to the ground. It's forcing kids to have better technique that way as well too, because
It's
if
good.
you're not wearing anything on your legs, you've got to make sure
Yeah.
you're going to stay high, and you can go high and hard and still wrap and bring your arms that way. That's the most important thing. As we talk anything football coaching wise, the importance of, again, legal tackling, legal blocking. Our governing organization, the National Federation of High School State Associations, they've made it a priority with some rule changes over the last handful of years. Mirroring some of the college rules when it comes to targeting, banning those type of hits, banning spearing, banning butt blocking. And again, in a sense that, again, continuing to stress, the helmet is not a weapon. It is a piece of protective equipment that we cannot be using to inflict pain. You certainly can, but you're also going to inflict pain to yourself.
Right.
And so
Yep.
how do we communicate that down to the youth level of, it is important that those volunteer coaches, paid coaches, whatever, if it's junior high, you name it, understand the importance and are being taught by somebody. This is the proper way to teach these drills and techniques to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe. And regardless if it's a practice drill or if it's actually during competition.
Yeah, and we
So
do
Jared,
that. We do teach the proper technique at the youth level, and trust me, I mean, we're trying to teach them from the very first time they're on the field at practice. And I do like the fact that high school practices are going to those no pants. They're doing Monday through Friday. I mean, Mondays after a game, typically you're wearing nothing. I mean, you're
Yep.
looking at film, maybe doing some stretching. Tuesday, Wednesday, you're going through it, but you're not taking kids to the ground. When I played, which was a long time ago, I mean, Monday we may have watched film, but then we'd go out and practice. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you were in full pads and you were expected to, tackle and hit. And it's like you just get beat up during the week, and then you had your game Friday night, and you have Saturday and Sunday to recoup, but then you're back at it. I like how the high school has really said, hey, Mondays, really, they don't do any pads. Tuesday, Wednesday, it's minimal pads. Save the hitting for Friday nights. And we started implementing that as well, Jared, at the youth level. If teams practice on Monday nights, they're in no equipment because they had a Sunday game.
Like I said, part of it too is, like I said, depends on what part of the state you're in, because everybody runs sub varsity football differently.
Sure.
But there's still a lot of sub varsity games on Monday. So with some of our varsity kids, the tweeners that might play a handful of snaps varsity wise, but they're primarily JV kids, they're not at practice on Monday. So those varsity programs are limited on the number of kids they have on
Right.
that are
Yeah.
available to practice. So that's
Yeah.
one of those, if you're talking to added benefits of you're a varsity only kid, it's the sub varsity kid that's getting a lot of it, because it's contact Friday, contact again Monday with a full fledged JV game, and they're the ones that have to come back on Tuesday, Wednesday, ready to go. And we know in some of those
Yeah.
cases, some of those kids are, while you're second stringers, they're still having to run scout team in some cases
Yep.
to
That's
give
right.
a good look to the varsity program.
So Jared, what would you say, excuse me, parent maybe who's concerned about tackle football? You kind of mentioned this before, a little bit of, flag or tackle. What could you say to kind of reassure them?
So I would say this. I think the parents have to feel comfortable with what they want to do. I can't dictate to a parent what they feel comfortable with, because they may have concerns. I can speak from the high school level of the different levels of safety or safety concerns that have been addressed, whether that be through heat acclimatization, but how often can they practice, what can they wear with pads, someone trying to keep the head out of football. When we talk to the youth level though, if someone wants to go gung ho, to me, if they want to go gung ho full pads, there's programs out there that run it very well. If there's some parents that are nervous about my kid might not be ready for full fledged, there's flag programs that are out there. That I know, like I said, I know in the Des Moines area, there's some modified flag where the kids get to look the part of wearing a helmet and shoulder pads, so I can feel like I'm a full fledged football player, but I'm still wearing flag. So if I get hit, I'm still wearing some protective equipment, so I'm not going to be bruised and battered that way, but I'm still looking the part with that. So that's the beauty right now of, again, across the state, of how we have different levels from the youth standpoint of, again, trying to allow parents to feel comfortable of putting their child in a program that they feel comfortable with, and hopefully not feeling pressured that they have to go one route or a different route
So
with it.
it sounds like what you're saying is really, as a parent, it's on you to sort of know what your goals are and to talk with your child and make sure that you're on the same page. Because I think that's when we start to see some issues when it comes to, we're having issues with, the coach or playing time or whatever. We got to make sure that everybody's on the same page, because it sounds like you really can get involved as much as you want. You can really go gung ho, or you can work on the fundamental in a flag program. Is that what?
that's how I would say for the youth standpoint. I said, again, every community is different.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
No one is going to win a Heisman Trophy in 5th or 6th grade, 7th or 8th grade.
Not
They're
yet.
not.
Not
Not
yet.
yet. I mean, again, we mentioned Arch Manning earlier. That's maybe, but
Parents think they are, but yeah.
and that's the biggest thing too. Is again, just peace of mind. Again, peace of mind is going to be different for everybody.
right.
Yeah.
And again, it still comes down to what that tone is, and through your program, through YSF. And again, who's the coach leading? You're giving resources to communities to do this. What's the coaching experience like to have that experience with their kids? Is it a positive experience? Hopefully, it's a positive experience that kids want to be a part of the program. Again, whether that be full tackle or what other programs you can offer.
Yeah, I think it's important for parents to ask questions. That's the one thing as a parent myself. Of course, my kids went through it. I was running the football program, but it's okay for parents to call, and we get a lot of parents who will call and ask questions. What's the coach? What is their certification that you require of them? What is it like? When's practice? What do they expect? And then go to the coach. And we tell our coaches, you need to have a parents meeting that first day. Communication and expectations are two huge things when it comes to coaching football. And parents out there need to just ask questions. You never get in trouble by asking a question. So, has the safety conversation changed, Jared, in high school football from years ago, would you say? I mean, like you started in what with the football program? Was it 19?
So, like I said, I took over football in 21,
21.
but I've been on staff here since 12. So I was on staff when uh, the shifts were coming with concussion
Yep.
safety and
Yep.
along those lines. I would say the trend right now is concussions are still on the forefront, especially with return to learn and return to play protocols.
Right.
It's really taken a shift more towards heat acclimatization, of trying to keep kids safe when it's very warm and humid during the preseason.
100%.
We've been fortunate here in Iowa that we've not had an athlete die uh, due to heat illness. Further south you go, that those situations do happen. So that's where it's been
Right.
more of a priority with our sports medicine advisory, going to the wet bulb globe thermometer standards of when we have a colored chart on our website right now of if you have this metric, and it tells you again it's not a temperature, it's an actual metric from this wet bulb that tells you if you're in the green zone, okay, it's do what you'd like to with your normal practice. But if you goes to yellow, it requires more water breaks. If it goes to orange, it requires that the shoulder pads be taken off. And if it goes to red, might as well call it a day, because you're not going to be able to get much done given where it's at that point with it.
Right.
I mean, so that's been the newest push, though, is trying to keep our kids safe that way.
I guess to kind of bounce off that answer of yours, if a school it goes to red, okay, and the school still practices in full pads, God forbid something happens. Do you guys get involved in that, or is that strictly it's a high school situation? I mean, you guys say, hey, listen, we've got these standards, we've got these protocols. That coach didn't do it. Obviously, the coach is going to feel bad and be in some trouble. But how much involved do you get? Because what we do is we cancel practices. When it gets to because we kind of go by your guys' thing. When it gets to a certain heat, I send out a note and I'll say, no practices at all today. Do you guys get involved if something like that happened? Or
if we get a phone call like that, we're going to follow up with the AD on what's going on. If we're hearing reports, like I said, a couple of years ago when it was ungodly warm the first week of full pads, we'd get some phone calls from some parents across the state saying there's no way my child should be in full pads this week. We follow up with the AD. Because again, we're giving the best practices with this. God forbid something terrible were to happen, those best practices are going to be used against that school.
Right. Yeah.
At the next level, and that's when we would end up ultimately getting involved. But we want to be proactive where we can if we're notified.
Right.
To at least follow up with the AD to make sure that he or she knows what's going on right now as well too. Because
do you have much say over that, athletic director?
they are since they're employees of the school, we are just passing along the
Got
note.
it. Okay.
Ultimately, again, they have their own people to answer for in their school district as to how they handle things. And while we don't oversee the ADs, like I said, we are a member-driven organization. So our big thing is policy and best practices, so our schools are informed of how to keep their kids safe.
That's good.
I know that you had kind of answered this. What concerns you most about the future of high school football in the state? And I think you answered it with, participation. And I think that's where we're seeing, do you guys ever look at the youth level and say, hey, what do you got down there? And I guess you really can't, because even though we could have 100 kids at 5th and 6th grade, that doesn't mean you're going to have 100 kids in high school. I mean, those numbers start to drop. But would you say participation is the biggest concern that you have for the state of football in Iowa?
It's participation levels at the school level and it's officials across the state.
Yeah. Oh, officials. Yeah, that's
I mean,
huge.
so like I said, where we're concerned, like I said, when we talk about, the sub-varsity programs not occurring, or we go from 3 levels to 2 levels. Okay, so some of those kids that are no longer getting reps, if they're not getting reps, they get frustrated, they don't play, then why do I come back out the following year?
Right. Yep.
It's also the standpoint of, there's always been that, our freshman numbers are great, and that's where we see the drop off as freshman to sophomore year.
Yep.
Kids get frustrated because the high school, it's a whole different level at that point compared to junior high, just trying to get everybody the opportunity to participate. But that's the frustrating part right now is we're not even getting some of our kids to the high school level. We're not getting some of our kids out. Like I said, we sanction 7th and 8th grade football across the state. We're not even getting some of our kids out 7th to 8th. So when Jim, when you talk about, when we talk about some of our programs with low numbers, whether that be a 8-player program that's, barely hanging on, or an A or a 1A program, and they're having those conversations, is you can't, and this, to quote my boss, hope's not a strategy. But if you've only got 7 or if you've only got 9 junior high kids out for football, there's not a whole slew of kids that are all of a sudden going to decide to play football for the first time as a junior or senior. You're going to have 1 or 2. You're going to have a few that all of a sudden are realize, kind of wish I would have played this earlier because I missed out on this opportunity. But the reality is, like I said, if I don't have numbers at the junior high level, and they're not coming, I'm not going to have numbers at the high school level. And that's where I think schools and we have a lot of great school administrators across the state. We have great ADs, we have great coaches. But all of a sudden we get to that point of, oh crap, we don't know what we're going to do. But maybe the writing's been on the wall, because you've had two junior high teams. You've had a 7th and an 8th, but now it's a combined 7th and 8th, and now you're struggling with numbers there. But you're hoping that you need 6 or 7 bodies to replace the varsity or the seniors that just graduated, and we get to that cycle right there of, what do we do to find kids? And sometimes in rural Iowa right now, they're just not there. I mean, they're not there, and it has nothing to do with kids not coming out. It's just the population. It's the enrollment of the school. The kids just aren't there. I mean, last weekend at the football coaches clinic in Des Moines, you start talking about, a handful of school, one school in particular. We have 15 boys in the junior high right now. I got 9 of them playing football, which is great. But when I don't have boys, I don't have a large pool to pull from. I mean, I'm getting 60%. That's great. But when 60% of 15 is not a large number to begin with, that's going to be an issue. It's going to be a 4-year cycle, or a 4-year issue with the school trying to get to high school football with that limited number.
So Jared, if you could give, one piece of advice to organizations that maybe are seeing the writing on the wall, what would you say to them?
Don't be afraid to share. I mean, again, that's what we see at the high school level is, people get nervous of when they lose their identity, whether that be their own football program. Again, in Iowa, we see with sharing agreements, teams typically share first before they even talk about sharing schools. But the idea, though, of how do we give our kids an experience? We can't offer it here, but we can partner with other schools to do that. But don't be afraid to reach out and say, we're struggling right here. How can we partner up to give our own kids the ability to participate? Whether that be through, again, actual full-fledged teams, whether that be through coaching and mentoring, whatever that issue might be. If you don't have, like I said, for us, if we don't have kids, we don't have programs. And it'd be the same for your programs as well with YSF. If there's not the interest, you need them. But again, we may need to get creative on how we partner going forward to impact as many kids as we currently are.
That's a great answer. We just have a couple other questions here. One that not on our sheet, Aaron. I'm just gonna spitball here, but
no, I'm just kidding.
Jared, one thing that I hate about college football is NIL. Do you anticipate seeing NIL coming to the high school level? I get asked that all the time, and I'm like, I would hope it wouldn't. I don't know how it would, to the fact that maybe in the Des Moines area where schools are so close, but rural area, I don't ever see it coming. Do you ever see NIL possibly coming down to the high school level?
So our policy allows NIL, and it's because the same reason that they actually allowed it in the state of California to begin with. It's from the standpoint of, it's just beyond just athletics. It's in a theory that I can use my name, image, or likeness to sell other goods. We had a prominent athlete in our state a handful of years ago that received a deal for a tutoring service. He didn't receive money. He got, in exchange for his testimony or his testimonial, they gave him free tutoring. I mean, that's a great thing.
Right.
But that's technically falls under the same realm of NIL that he gave a testimonial. The individual did not say what high school he was participating from, because he was Jared Chizik's student. Was
Sure.
Here are the benefits that I had, I received from, I raised my grade from a certain level here with the help of this partnership. And that's why, like I said, we do have NIL guidance. There's a lot of misconceptions out there what that actually means, what that is. We are not like the NCAA. When people are saying we need to have certified agents, we have not gotten to that point. There are no collectives in high school sports. Again, we can all hear at the next level what people are receiving for their commitment to a new institution. And I guess from the NCAA level, I'm interested to see what the new clearinghouse, how effective is it really going to be, or is it just going to be a sham? Let's just call it what it is. Am I getting paid to be an athlete, or am I actually getting paid for being in commercials, being, helping sell products across the state?
So I have another question. Who's the best ball attendant you've ever worked with?
Chuck Van Heck is number one. I mean, Chuck's in the Hall of Fame. It's certainly not Greg Henn, so let's get that out there right now.
Wow.
If Greg is listening, it is certainly not Greg. I mean, Jim, you're a distant second from Chuck, but you are
I appreciate that. Do you think I'll ever make the Hall of Fame in ball attendance? I'm working. I got an off-season program, Jared, all lined up, so I'm ready for the state football playoffs. I just want you to know.
That'll be excellent.
Yeah. Aaron, you got
Jared,
a couple questions, I guess. Don't you?
I was going to ask, could you give us maybe a story or a memory that's like, this is why I do what I do?
Man, there's been a lot of them. Like I said, fortunately, like I said, we get to see the highs and the lows at the state finals, regardless of what sport it is. Regardless of what sport it is. I joke with Andy in our office, because he was actually on the sideline for this game when Decorah with Josie Jewell just kicked the living snot out of Bishop Heelan. It had been in the early 2012, 2013. I have never seen a community or a coaching staff so excited winning a state championship than Coach Bill Post and Decorah did that night on that Thursday night in the Unidome. Bill did not want to leave the Unidome floor because he was still leading his student section in cheers after winning it. And it's like, this is great, because he is truly enjoying it. He got the monkey off his back, but he is truly just taking in the moment of, we've accomplished this as a school, we've accomplished this as a staff, as a team. Our kids played extremely well. At that point, I think Josie was still committed. Our only interest was still Luther at that point. So that was well before he was any NFL type player. But just, I said, that's one of our memories, though, when you talk about how exciting kids can be, or a staff can be, of winning a state championship. That'd be one of them.
It's awesome. I appreciate you letting us work the state championship games, because until you've experienced it, there's nothing like it. I mean, it's awesome. The atmosphere, the kids, the emotions. I mean, 1 minute they're down, 1 minute they're up. It's just, there's just a slew of things that are happening in one game that you just see, and it's just, I take it all in. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. And you guys do an awesome job, Jared. Your staff, the way that, and I can only talk for the state football because that's all I've attended, but having been able to work with your staff and the way you guys run, you would not believe how it is. It runs like clockwork, Aaron. I mean, I just can't say enough what you guys do, your old staff. These guys, when they get done on that Friday night at 8 o'clock, that's later than 10 o'clock, they have worked 2 weekends, and you can just see this big weight lifted off your shoulder, and everybody's just like, we're done. We're here. We've made it to the finish line. They went up a huge mountain, and I can only imagine what everything that goes on into running a state thing. You got basketball next week, but Jared, you guys do a great job, and we appreciate you, and we appreciate your office and Tom and all your staff and everything you guys do. And I appreciate you coming on our podcast. So
I'm just hoping, like I said, I'm glad that the technology worked today.
It did.
It worked, because we were supposed to do this last week.
No,
And
wait,
Jim, like I said, we did, I said, was it 2 or 3 years ago that we tried our first one?
Yeah.
The first time it didn't take. The second time, I don't know if it ever got published.
It never got published. So
like I said, this is the 4th time that I've attempted to be on this podcast.
Yes,
So I'm kind of
it's
excited.
great.
I told you, this is a very important story. Yeah.
We got a professional producer now. So she runs it. She makes sure it happens. I'm just the host with the most. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
But Jared, thank
Jim.
you so much. Congratulate you on your new baby coming soon.
Yay.
And good luck next week at the state basketball championships. And we will talk to you, I'm sure, before the fall, but if not, we'll see you hopefully in November to work the state championship games again. So, yeah.
Sounds great, Jim.
I
Thanks,
appreciate
Aaron,
it.
for having
Thank
me.
you.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
All right. So, Aaron, take us home.
Yeah. So if you want to follow us or be a subscriber, you can do that on Youth Sports Foundation on Instagram or YouTube. We have a channel that you can actually view this. So I don't know if you guys are viewing this or if you're listening, but we are From the Sidelines, Youth Sports Foundation on YouTube. Again, you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Youth Sports Foundation. So thanks for being here.
Everyone have a great weekend, and we'll talk to everybody next week. Thank you.
All right, let's bring it home. Today, we talked about what high school programs are actually seeing from incoming athletes, where gaps in fundamentals and development are showing up, and how youth sports can better prepare kids for that transition. But if there's one thing to remember, it's this. Youth sports aren't separate from high school sports. They're the foundation of it. This is exactly why at YSF we focus on development, structure, and consistency. Because what happens early shows up later. If this episode was helpful, share it with a parent, a coach, or someone in your community, because these conversations make youth sports better. And if you want to go deeper, here's where to go next. Episode 3, Doing Youth Sports the Right Way with Joe Payne, for a real on-the-ground look at how this actually plays out in communities. Episode 2, Parent Voice with Lindsay Phillips, to hear how this experience looks and feels from a parent's perspective. And in our very first episode, The Making of YSF with Dan Nitzel, to understand where it all started and what YSF has always been about. Thanks for being here with us from the sidelines. We'll see you next time. YSF forever.